Hey there, I'm Faisal, and welcome to another episode of So What Do You Actually Do? Today, I got the chance to interview Shaan. Shaan is a process automation engineer at Wood. Wood is a global engineering company that designs and builds and takes care of big industrial projects for other companies. They start from the beginning, such as the initial idea, the actual adoption of the idea integrated into their systems, and they also shut it down if it's no longer needed. Shaan's specialty is implementing the Manufacturing Execution System, or MES for short, which is a software that helps industrial plants or factories run more efficiently. By connecting the top-level business systems like planning, inventory, and scheduling with the machines and workers on the factory floor, companies invest in MES to improve areas of operations in areas like tracking production, quality control, scheduling, collecting data, reducing downtime, improving efficiency. But installing the MES is more complex than it sounds. Shaan's day-to-day includes understanding the process. He needs to understand what exactly is the scope of this work. What is it that he needs to do to improve anything in the radius of quality, speed, or efficiency? From there, he designs the solution. He tries to find the best fit for the company's operational goals. And then he actually works with the technicians, because MES isn't just a plug and play system. It takes real expertise. All of that can't be done if he doesn't collaborate with other teams in the company. And that means he would work with IT, with the quality control, everybody to ensure the system works through and through from beginning to end. But obviously, there's always that thing that you always have to troubleshoot and support. From there, it's a matter of sustainability and improving the process. Once it's up and running, he makes sure that he reads and analyzes the process, and if the system has any hiccups, to be improved from there on. So, without further ado, you can listen to more of what Shaan does in this episode coming up. All right. Well, we'll start with a quick round of introductions of who you are in terms of where you studied, what you studied, and how does what you study kind of, if at all, it doesn't have to correlate with the job you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, shirt says it all. Studied chemical engineering at Virginia Commonwealth University out in Richmond, Virginia. I also picked up a bachelor's in chemistry during my time there because of the very similar overlap in curriculum between the two. And then I did a 6-year course. So I did, 1 year of co-op. But in addition to that, I also, had to spend a little bit of time retaking some classes and spending some time learning a little bit more in the chemistry curriculum outside of the, general core engineering curriculum.
Perfect. So you work at Wood. Can you describe to us what Wood is and what is the typical line of work that they do?
Yep. So Wood is a very large consulting and engineering problem solving company, right? In the grand scheme, what we really do is we help solve problems for other companies, right? In energy and material industries, and even in life sciences, kind of where we're growing, and other markets, right? So we come in when a company is like, hey, we're thinking about doing something, right? So we come in and help with the concept or feasibility study, but also when a company is talking about, well, we'd like to make an oil rig, or we have this brand new facility, we need to design a process for it, or we'd like to automate and implement an MES system. And I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. But in a snippet, that's essentially what we do.
Got it. All right. Well, we're gonna jump into like the meat of the interview. Um, what does a typical day at work look like for you? When do you normally clock in? What do you actually do in the first couple of hours, the first day of the week, versus let's say quarterly, if there are any like quarterly type of plans that you guys have, and then towards like the afternoon and ending the day, are most of what you do meetings, or is most of it the work itself, and what are the set of skills that you need to have to do the job that you have?
Oh man, that's like 8 questions into one question. It was like an engineering homework problem. um, yeah, I think the first part of it, what am I actually doing day to day, right? We say automation engineer, but what does that actually mean? right? I think the first part of it is understanding the project scope of what I currently have. To give everybody a better idea, what we're specifically trying to do is implement something called MES, which is Manufacturing Execution System, right? This is kind of like the brainchild of the factory, of the operations. It gives you, it's supposed to give you real-time view of everything in your facility, whether that's how much of the material is being used, how much is still available, what's actually being made. Are you making product A or product B or product C? Are all of the machines and the equipment and the instruments, are they all functioning correctly? Are there any errors that may be happening? And it gives you that bird's eye view of all of that, right? But also the opportunity to jump in and get a very specific view of any, material that may not have been used entirely, right? So you may have stuff left over. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. Now, applying that, right, the first stage where we're really, where that really comes into play is, can a facility handle that, right? So we run concept and feasibility studies to ensure that where we're trying to implement it, can it be done? After we do that, it's kind of where I'm at right now, stage 2, and this is where the real fun actually begins. So I go in every day, and I think this is going to answer a part of that, the other 8 questions that came with it. It's, I show up anywhere between 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., right? Somewhere in that morning range. You kind of get there a little bit earlier if you want to talk to operators during shift handover, while they're transitioning out of a night shift to a morning shift.
I'm sorry, are you meeting them in person or is that a Zoom call? Or
That's a great question. No, so this is in person at the site. If you're working in life sciences, you gown up. So you change out of your regular clothes and you put on these like scrubs, and then you walk through another room and you put on another layer of scrubs. You got like 3 layers of gloves on. And so, you got to make sure you take that into account when you're running late, if you're running late and getting to work. So all of this is in person. And so essentially, when I show up, we're putting documentation together. So one part of it is operational readiness to ensure that the operators know how to use this automation system. Another part of our day is sitting through meetings with the developers, right? And the developers could be a series of different, it depends on the software we're using, right? So you could run, Rockwell, you could run a different one called Syncade, and there are other ones out there for the particular project I'm working on. It's Rockwell. So we meet with Rockwell's developers who do the back end work to create all of the MES platform and the workflows. So a lot of that time is spent sitting with them to be like, this is what we need to highlight in the process. Like, this is step 1. We're going to scan the bag. After we scan the bag, we're going to move the bag into a basket. After we put it into a basket, we're going to scan the basket, right? We're going to go through the nitty gritty, individualized steps to execute that workflow. So that's a lot of those day-to-day operations. I'm going to add one last thing. And that is, man, do we work a lot in Excel? So everything that we do has a tracker. Everything that we execute has a workflow in Excel. So please be Excel savvy.
That makes sense. Going back, the MES stands for Manufacturing Execution System, correct?
Yes,
So
sir. Yeah.
is what you do with those life sciences companies essentially not to discount everything that goes around it, but it is teaching the plant or the facility how to optimize on their day-to-day in terms of the inputs and the outputs through this manufacturing execution system, the MES in between. And is it tailored for each facility and it's patterned by Wood? So it's like you just take it there and you make sure that they understand what their needs, what needs to go in, and how they should take the steps, like you mentioned, to give the output or the throughput that they need to make revenue.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So we don't actually make the system ourselves. I should have highlighted this earlier. We are a systems integrator,
Mm.
right? So we're kind of like the middleman between the two, right? We take the MES system that a company or a vendor can provide. We take the client that we have and we mix the two together and ensure that they can all cooperate with each other. And we provide a lot of the project management as well for that integration.
Got it. Got it. What are the steps that you do as an engineer when it comes to making that connection? Do you do like a first round screening of what are the needs to find the right vendor? And then from there, do you do like, is there a typical timeline for each project to hand over? And once it's handed over, do you do any work that to sustain the work? I know this is another engineering problem with three questions embedded.
Yeah, yeah. And this is a good one, right? This is pretty much like almost a business case for us, right? It's like, ideally, the ideal situation is a client comes to us and they go, "Hey, this is what we want. We specifically want this system to be implemented into our facility. Can you please help us do it?" That's the ideal case. Rarely are we ever operating under ideal circumstances, right? Most of the time, and you can probably imagine, right? It's like they come to us going, "Hey, this is something we would like to accomplish. How do we do it? What system is best suited for us? What should we do to prepare for this?" And it's helping them, taking the client step by step through the individualized steps to help pick out the right program, the right, MES system. And then after we help them pick out the right MES system, we then help them implement the system if we can win that work. Usually, you're like, "Hey, we can help you pick the system, implement the system, and then we'll teach you how to use the system." And then, of course, like any business, we want to make sure we have sustainable work. So we try to sell them more work to be like, you're going to need to, you're going to have some troubleshooting in the beginning when you're operating. We can be there to help support those efforts and those endeavors. So we try to take them through every step of the process. However, I think this is where the consulting, and the expertise comes in for Wood, is we essentially can step in at any phase, right, during this time and kind of jump in with both our feet and help them get to the next part. Because usually when you come in through the middle, that means somebody that was a different company helping out and it didn't go too well, right? So we want to step in, help solve any problems, mitigate any anxiety, any stress that might have already been caused, and help keep pushing on the project.
That makes sense. Thank you for that. So you mentioned programs like the MES, which depends on the type of integrator. You mentioned being an Excel savvy. Any other programs that someone needs to be aware of in this line of work?
Yeah, I think that, there are highly technical softwares you should really try to become familiar with. And then there are softwares that'll help you excel in the job. However, they are not technical softwares used, right? They are not the specific automation applications. So I think the first few are going to be, Rockwell's automation. They have something called Factory Talk for Pharma Suite. That's definitely something you should know. Emerson, I know everybody's heard of Emerson, right? They've got Delta V systems, Syncade. There are these specific platforms that you should 100% try to get your hands on, try to work on them, learn, whether it's watching YouTube videos, whether it's, going and reaching out through co-ops or, finding nitpicky parts of the role that you may already be in. Try to step into that realm and become familiar with, what it's used for. And then those non-technical applications, right? Like Excel, using Excel will always be an asset when you're an engineer, right? So being able to use Excel on a day to day is fantastic. I think something we're using a little bit more and more these days has become Visio to make flowcharts. It's Microsoft Visio. It's pretty much like you use it to make block flow diagrams and other beautiful diagrams that are easy to follow, whether you're doing it for operational readiness, whether you're doing it to kind of show a project plan. And then I think the last thing I want to, end with is if you can learn how to use a Gantt chart, navigate a Gantt chart, it will be highly beneficial to you. And I think everybody will love you for it. Gantt chart will show you project deliverables, and they'll kind of break it down piece by piece, but also show you the entirety of the project timeline. So I wanted to share those, and those are definitely a few applications you could jump into. Last one real quick for Excel, VBA, Visual Basic Applications. Definitely a big tips and tricks. I use that on a day-to-day basis. Um, so yeah, those are the ones I recommend.
Gosh, VBA is there in the back of my brain due to a specific certain course we took.
Yeah. It's
Um,
crazy that was a freshman level course because that's one of the courses I use the most often. You know what I'm saying? Like that's one I use day to day, man. So,
yeah, it is. It is very impactful course. Last question on the job specifically. Um, what would you say is the typical pay for your years of experience in this line of work?
yeah, absolutely. So I'll answer this in a few different ways, right? I think the first way is I came in with a lot of process engineering background into the role, right? So I didn't actually do any development work or anything, over the top with MES systems and with Rockwell. I knew how to navigate through Delta V. So coming in with just as a user, we call it like user experience. Um, I came in and they gave me an offer. I'm a few years removed from school now, but they gave me an offer at 99,840. I know that we have individuals in that are experienced engineers, right? Anywhere between it could be 5 to 7, and they're making a little bit close to like 115, 120, right? And that range just differs on whether or not you work in the consulting industry or if you're working as a process automation engineer for a client, whether you're on site, executing at different levels. So I think that's a little bit where the salary range is for the role. I think it pays well for the work that you do. Uh,
So I guess at the 7 year mark, it's the 115 to 120. At the early, like first couple of years, it roughly is at the 100K range.
yeah, I would say you could expect to start out anywhere between like 85 to 95. I think is very reasonable. Um,
Makes sense. Very last question. What advice would you give to someone who's interested in pursuing a career in process automation engineering?
Absolutely. So I think my first advice is, don't limit yourself to feeling like you only like one of those application systems, right? Get yourself familiar with different application systems to determine which one you like best. I think the second part of it is always networking. Network, network, network. Always reach out to individuals that are automation engineers. Figure out what they do. Maybe what I do is far different than the experience other automation engineers have out there. So reach out to them, talk to them, do informational interviews, and ask that, hey, do you have 15 minutes, 20 minutes to talk a little bit about automation engineering? I'm very interested. Um, so I think those are two big ones. I think the third one for anyone to step into process automation, it will always be an asset to you, regardless of where you go, to understand a process. And what I mean by a process are unit operations or a series of operations to develop, manufacture, and create a product. If you know how to do that, then it will be much easier for you to automate that system. It will be much easier for you to understand the intricacies and the challenges of what those systems currently have and where you can find optimizations in the middle to further provide value add to your clients and customers, right? And even your boss, because then it's like, oh man, you're coming in and you already knew we were having some issues here. You were able to solve it. So I think those are my three main points I'd probably like to share.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sean, and I appreciate the time you've given us. I think I've learned a lot from what you've shared with us today. And for anyone who is interested in process automation engineer, this is a great reference point for the job. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with friends and family, especially ones that are in high school and college or looking into a career shift. Thank you again, Sean.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And it was an honor to be on the channel.